This is Georgia High School Sports Daily, powered by IBEW Local 613.
All right, good Friday to everyone. Big night of high school football, and this is the Georgia High School Sports Daily, powered by IBEW Local 613. We're here every Monday through Friday from noon to 1, your lunch hour, at the Score Atlanta studios up here in Roswell. You can also watch us on an encore production every night on Peachtree Sports Network at 11 p.m. And tonight will be a big night, a lot of high school football. I want to welcome in real quick Craig Sager, who will be co-hosting today's show. Najee will also be on, Najee Wilkins, who's co-hosted with me the last 3 days. And we'll be back Monday, and we'll be back Tuesday. So there's a lot of different ways to pick this up if you're not in front of your television set. You can certainly, Peachtree Sports Network is available on Xfinity, YouTube TV, the over-the-air channel at 17.2. You can also watch this on what is a great app, the Atlanta News First. That's a CBS affiliate, our partner in Atlanta, Gray TV, Gray Media. And but that Atlanta News First app, if you download that, you can watch the show every day. You can also watch the games on Friday night and pretty much anything we do. We're also available on the National Federation High School Network. In fact, all of our content is on there. We're streaming live on Zeem, which is a CBS new streaming portal. And there's also an opportunity after the shows to watch on our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, look up Score Atlanta, and you can watch each of the different shows that we have. So today we want to start with what we call our Fastbreak Headlines. We're going to start, we've got one that we'll start with in a second about one of the other schools in the county for Appalachia that's actually not going to play their homecoming game tonight in respect. But I do want to bring this up because I think it's important, and we are a high school sports program, and we do cover high schools. And Craig, I'd love for you to chime in on this. But this morning, both Colt Gray, who is accused of being the shooter a couple of days ago at Appalachia, and his dad were both in the judge's courtroom. It was their chief judge, Curry Mingledorf, in Barrow County. And both of them were arraigned. Colin, of course, the father, appeared shortly after his son and was very nervous. You could tell if you watched it. But just, the whole thing is really sad, Craig. And we found out that the father, gave his son an automatic rifle. And one of the things you said to me before the program, if you give a kid something like that, you don't shoot deer with an automatic rifle.
Very bizarre.
Yeah.
People are always looking for solutions when these tragedies happen. It's hard to kind of find out what could have been done to prevent it, but they're holding him accountable. I think that's new and different, and with those charges. And then also, you mentioned Atlanta News First. Since this news broke a couple days ago, they have been on top of it. That's been the go-to. They were the first to report the casualties. I think between them and the AJC, they have really done a great job covering this difficult situation.
And this is the only, Craig, the second time where a parent has been charged, or in the first situation it was actually a mother and a father that had been charged with the son. And in this case, I thought I'd just point out a couple of, I think, very interesting things. In the courtroom this morning, the judge actually made a mistake. The judge talked about the fact that Colt Gray was charged with 4 counts of felony murder, as outlined in the state warrants, and actually said that he could actually be sentenced to death, which is a mistake, and he had to bring Colt back into his. I think they did it in the chambers, and basically said that you can't put a 14-year-old to death. So. His possible punishment will be imprisonment for life without parole, or, he could get some type of possibility of parole. The dad's facing a maximum punishment of 180 years in prison. So we're going to continue to follow this, Craig. But, this is, like you said, this is a very difficult story on a lot of people. You wish stuff like this could stop, but it doesn't seem to. So we're going to go to our fast break headlines. Our first one, which I think is awesome, Seconder postponed their homecoming game after the Appalachia shooting. They are in Barrow County, and they decided to postpone the homecoming game. They were going to play Winder-Barrow. And so they have also postponed their homecoming pep rally. They're still going to hold their homecoming dance, where they'll announce the senior homecoming queen. But, Principal Jimmy Fisher wrote a letter to the community regarding the decision after the Appalachia shooting that left 4 dead, including football coach Ricky Aspinwall, who spent nearly a decade at, Mountain View as well. So, I think that's the right decision, don't you?
It definitely is, and this really comes close to home for Seconder. Coach Lottie was Appalachia's head coach, so it just makes sense. When you have homecoming, that's a time of celebration, and it just didn't seem right. So they're going to postpone it indefinitely. They haven't picked a date, but Seconder's undefeated. They're playing outstanding. I think it just is the right move.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the rest of the headlines. And you've got Southwest DeKalb and Clarkston face off for the first time since 1979, Craig.
Some DeKalb County history right there. And that game was last night. Southwest DeKalb had a 70-0 win. It was the 16th time they've played. And when you look at Southwest DeKalb, big win, 70-0. They beat Chambly 61-7 last week. So I know Mark Brock and those guys are probably updating some of those record books. But a big win in a historic rival last night.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Coming from DeKalb County, where I was at Lakeside, very familiar with Southwest DeKalb, who was a big power back in the 1970s. Poor Clarkston really hasn't ever been real good at football, which was a little surprising growing up, considering, they were right over there near Avondale. And, of course, Avondale, for many years in the late 50s and the 60s, and even had some great teams in the 70s, was sort of the team to beat. But poor Clarkston just hadn't had a whole lot of football.
DeKalb County has so many powerhouses with the Stephensons, Miller Groves. So Clarkston has had to take its lumps over the years, but it's good to see those two teams playing again, first time since 1979.
All right, our third headline in softball, Wesleyan handed Buford its first loss of the season, 5-3. It was a battle of undefeated teams and state champions. Craig, Buford has won 2 straight championships, and Wesleyan has won 3 in a row. Of course, both of them in different classifications. Buford has 12 all-time state titles in the sport, while Wesleyan has 5, all since 2017. We had Buford number 1 in the 6A Score Atlanta poll, and Wesleyan was number 2 in Class A Division I. So Wesleyan rallied over the final 2 innings for a thrilling 5-3 victory over Buford. I'll tell you, what's interesting about Buford, softball is so big. When we started Score Atlanta 21 years ago, I think that the last 18 years we have gotten an email from one of Buford's people after every softball game for Buford. I mean, they have that good of a program up. It's that important to them.
100%. When we used to do the call-ins on Friday nights for scores, we'd have all the football ones coming in, and then we get the Buford softball always.
All right, you're going to talk some basketball with Wheeler.
Yeah, speaking of teams that have targets on their back, Wheeler, they have some talent coming back, and they are showing out so far this offseason. An elite crop of talent heading into the season. On3 comes out with the latest 2027 basketball rankings. Point guard Kevin Savage is rated a 4-star prospect, number 2 in the state and number 47 nationally. Wheeler also has a 3-star point guard, Coda Settle Jr., and he is dynamic in the open court. 4-star power forward, Tylis Jordan, transferred in from Shiloh for the upcoming season and committed to Ole Miss on June 21st. So they will definitely be one of the top teams to watch for this year.
And our last headline, I want to congratulate River Ridge quarterback Ethan Spector. He won the Cherokee County Player of the Week. It was a 42-13 victory for Allatoona. Spector went 19 for 23 for 294 yards and 5 touchdowns. He led River Ridge to a Corky Kell Dave Hunter 7-on-7 invitational back in June at Georgia Tech. Specters led River Ridge to a 2-1 record this year and has thrown for 516 yards and 9 touchdowns, and I think that's actually in 2 games. But congratulations to Ethan for that. Craig, before we go to break, Fridays are fun. I mean, both of us experienced them in high school. I remember it was very hard when I was at Lakeside in the 1970s. So it was very hard to concentrate on school. Now, the lucky thing when I was a senior at Lakeside was we got out at 12 o'clock because they had a work. We had a work deal, where we had to work from like 12 to 3 or 12 to 4. But I didn't have. I worked at Farrell's, which was an old ice cream parlor, but they allowed me not to work on Friday, which was nice to get ready for the game. But how about you at Walton? I mean, it was hard to focus, sort of looking at that clock, waiting to get out to play.
Yeah, there's nothing more fun than it. The pregame meals, that's just always such a fun time. You never know what you're going to get. A lot of teams do it differently. Sometimes they'll cater it. Other times the mothers will come in and get you guys ready. But it is a long day. But once kickoff gets there, there's nothing better.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And, I just know that, we've been involved here at SCORE Atlanta in high school sports for 21 years. And even over those 20 years, I mean, Craig, the increase in interest with high school football and everything that's going on with that. Of course, college football, the way it's changed is sort of coming down and changing high school with NIL and a lot of transferring in high schools and different things like that. But it's going to be really interesting, to see how this continues and, especially how NIL fits in. All right, coming up, we've got the Georgia High School Football Daily Look. We'll be right back.
Great teams are committed, focused on the details, and work hard to be their best. From practice to games, right down to their gear. The field is a vital part of the game that allows your athletes to showcase their athletic abilities. Sports Turf is committed to bringing your team innovative sports services with unparalleled performance. You bring a vision. Our team brings it to life.
The Georgia Sheet Metal JETC equips apprentices with the knowledge and skills required to start a rewarding career in the sheet metal industry with programs in HVAC, industrial welding, and testing, adjusting, and balancing. Training is 100% free and allows apprentices to earn as they learn. Journeymen graduate with no student debt and have the potential to earn more than most college graduates. Visit our website to learn more about this opportunity at careersinsheetmetal.com.
Hey, is the power off on this?
I don't know. Just take it off.
Safety violation, unsafe work conditions.
In the construction trades unions, safety is our highest priority, and we train you to recognize and speak out on unsafe working conditions so that everyone arrives and goes home safely. Learn about careers in construction at GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com.
Beginning the morning you opened your eyes, we spent every waking moment preparing you for the day you'd leave our nest. Whether it's driving to practice or helping with homework, it's all prepared you for what am I going to be when I grow up? Will you be ready?
After much thought, I made my decision to take my talents to the IBEW Local 613.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers is not simply a job, it's a career. Visit IBEW613.org to begin a new future today.
Georgia High School Sports Daily is brought to you by the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 613. Electrify your career.
All right, welcome back to the Georgia High School Sports Daily, brought to you by IBEW Local 613. And after looking at myself in the camera, I need a haircut.
Yeah, I got mine yesterday.
I need to make sure to get a haircut. All right, every day at this time, we take a look at what's happened in the high school football daily. Of course, that's our friends Chip Say, Ted Langford, and especially Todd Holcomb, who put out a tremendous newsletter Monday through Friday. And if you notice our name somewhere to that, there's a reason for that. There are big partners. We sort of split up all the work with the AJC. A lot of people don't realize tonight we'll have, 8-9 people working on scores. Craig Sager, co-host today. But I mean, it's a big night. I mean, you and Seth Ellerby and Najee, and there's just your sister.
Yep.
Your sister lives where?
She lives in Missouri.
She lives in Missouri, but she is our she does a great job at running. It typically writes our lead game for our roundup and a lot of other things. She helps, obviously. She also is a good editor too.
Yes, she is. She's been covering games up there too in Missouri. So she is, and she covered the new football league this last year. So she's
good. She's got a lot of sports in her blood, like you do. But we'll talk a little bit about the daily. On Fridays, they do their leaderboard, which I'll tell you what, I don't know how they do this, because a lot of schools just don't do a very good job with statistics. I mean, we both
it's
know
tough.
that.
Even the Max Preps ones can be incomplete.
So just sort of taking a look at what they did this morning. So just wanted to go over, what some of the top players are doing, and I mean, it's pretty amazing. So in the rushing total right now, you've got one player over 600 yards. That's Ahmad Howard from Walnut Grove. He's the leader in 4A and the leader in the state right now. Mark Howard from Woodland Stockbridge has 566 yards, and then Jalen Aquino from Drew has 554 yards, and then I'll round that out with Tasheen Wiggins from Commerce, who's the A Class 1 leader with 531 yards. But it's a pretty interesting list. I mean, you got some really very talented kids on this list.
Absolutely. We saw Pope's John Stutzer up there. He's a baseball prospect. He was number 2 in the entire country for his receiving yards these last few weeks. He has 10 touchdowns. So I think Pope and what Coach O'Sullivan's doing with that offense, I said it earlier the week, that is a fun team to watch. And you just have this guy that, I mean, he's getting 240 receiving yards a game. That is unheard of.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I mean, it's just, it's very interesting to see, look at some of the passing totals right now. Antoine Hill from Houston County, who we'll talk about in a few minutes, has 958 yards through the air, almost 1,000. We'll obviously go over 1,000 tonight. Ben Brown from Wesleyan, he's the 3A through A leader with 955 yards. Devin Edmonds, Jones County, has 821 yards. Looking for the 6A leader is actually the kid from Cherokee, Tanner Savisser, who's 808 yards. I'll give you a couple other ones. 2A leaders from Morgan County, that's Davis Strickland, 787 yards. And then the 3A leader, Titus Watkins from Oconee County at 763 yards. Speaking of Julian Lewis, he's gotten off to a really good start, 752 yards from Carrollton. And then I'll tell you, your quarterback at Walton, who's replacing one of the best that's ever played at Walton, Caden Gilstrap, has 703 yards. That kid's done nicely.
Yes, he has. And Christian Ward, the transfer from Carrollton, has been pretty much their primary target. Last year, Walton had so many different guys leading the receiving group. This year, it's been pretty much all Christian Ward. So we'll see if he has another big week, but he's been unstoppable since week 1 in the Corky Kell and ever since.
Yeah, and just in case you want to know, Lyndon Worthy from Worth County is the A1 leader with 699 yards. Let's go to receiving really quick, because you brought up John. Is it Stutzer? Is it Stutzer?
I think that's what it is.
Stutzer from Pope, 5A leader of 556 yards. That's pretty good. Is that 3 games? I hope.
Yeah. So against Dunwoody, he had 230 receiving yards, but he had 4 rushing touchdowns. And then last week it was that shootout against Cherokee. I think it was almost 1,200 combined yards. It was like 63 to 48 or something like that. But he had 5 touchdowns through the air. So, I mean, he's a baseball commit. He's an absolute baller. But obviously he's going to be the primary target for Pope this year.
I'll tell you, he's a good player. And I'll tell you, Houston County, I'm glad I picked them for Corky Kell. But they just killed it to start off with. And Isaiah Mitchell, 536 yards. Just an excellent football player.
And what Todd said about Isaiah was so interesting. I had no idea. He was saying that he was ineligible last season when he transferred over and served pretty much as a coach on the sideline. And now you see him leading one of the most high-powered offenses in the state. So that'd be quite a story if Houston County can continue to keep rolling like they do. They have a big matchup against Warner Robins tonight.
And let's talk about Isaiah Mitchell for just a few more minutes because he was the GHSF Daily State Player of the Week. There he is right there with Ted Langford from the Georgia High School Football Daily. They went up and presented him as Player of the Week. And I was talking to Ted this morning, Craig. What a great story. Look, every kid can't be an A student. And it's very rare these days to see a kid ineligible. It just doesn't happen. Now, back when we were playing, different story, all right? But today, it seems like one way or another, most kids stay eligible. But this kid was not eligible to play last year and just had a situation where they made him player coach. He kept his attitude very nicely and he just kept going. And, he's really become a break player. Last week, the 5'11", 160-pound senior had 10 receptions for 192 yards and 4 touchdowns in the 31-17 victory over Perry. And also playing cornerback, he came on a blitz and picked up a key sack that essentially sealed the win. He's also thrown 2 touchdown passes and made an interception this year. But most notably, of course, are his yards, that 536 yards in the first. And this is where I think I'm proud about Score Atlanta and Corky Kell Dave Hunter Classic is because when we put these kids on TV, all right, and this is a perfect example, after his game, all right, against Alpharetta, he has gotten like 10 offers. I mean, including Georgia Tech and Florida State, and I think that's pretty cool.
It's amazing, and that was honestly one of my favorite plays of all of Corky Kell. If you remember, it was against Alpharetta in the first half. They threw a quick screen to him, and he just immediately took it. Perfect pass, touchdown. So that was one of his 2 touchdown plays. But for him to get the Player of the Week, get this recognition, he's having so much fun this season.
Yeah, and happy for him that he sort of cleaned his life up and is doing better in school and is getting the ability to play. All right, coming up in a few minutes, we're going to have Calhoun head coach Clay Stephenson. One of the things I'm going to ask him about is last year we brought him down and they played Carver Atlanta in the Great Atlanta Bash, which I think was a really good experience for not only himself but for the others in Calhoun. And of course, we've got the big game tonight, Calhoun and Cartersville. That game's at Calhoun. All our games on Friday night will start at right about 8:07. We'll come on the air with a pregame show. Kaylee Mansell does a fabulous job of interviewing the head coaches before the game. We also, we've got Brandon Adams and Rusty Mansell, Roddy White, our executive producer. So they're already up in Calhoun right now getting ready for the game. So make sure to tune in to that. And like I said, in a few minutes, we'll have Clay Stephenson on that. Calhoun Carrollton should be a good one.
Yes, it will. And I think with this Calhoun team, last year was so disappointing for them to miss out on the playoffs. I think this year it's about getting better every single week. It's not going to be a region matchup like it typically has been, but the experience gained from playing Cartersville and then potentially getting that big win, it's really going to be driving them.
Yeah, so we're going to be back in a couple of minutes, and we're going to take a look at or speak to Calhoun head coach Clay Stephenson. Like I said, they play tonight on our drive to GHSA state title. So we'll talk to Clay next.
Georgia High School Sports Daily is presented by GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com. Transform your future today. And by Smart Local 85. Sheet metal is a smart move.
All right, welcome back to the Georgia High School Sports Daily, brought to you by IBEW Local 613. Craig Sager sitting in with me right now. Do we have Najee for the second or no? We don't have Najee. All right, we'll have Najee back in the fourth segment, and we talk about our statewide selections. But now I want to go to Calhoun coach, head coach Clay Stephenson. Calhoun tonight is hosting Cartersville, which is always been a very, very good rivalry. Coach, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Hey, thanks, guys. Doing well. How about yourself?
Good. Talk a little bit about you guys' start this season. You know, I know last year was a little bit disappointing not making the playoffs. This year got off to a little bit of a slow start in the opener against Creekview, but you came back and beat Westminster last week. But tell us sort of where you feel this team is at right now.
Yeah, very pleased where we are. We got a long way to go, but I feel like we've made progress after the opening game. You know, it was kind of an odd start. We had a 3-hour delay. We got finished at 1:15. And then we had an open week the next week, which a lot of times you don't want to have open weeks after a loss, but we were able to kind of go back to some basics and fundamentals of blocking and tackling. And the effort's been there both games. We were luckily we were able to bounce back last week. So super proud of the players and the coaching staff for bouncing back after that loss, putting in 2 good weeks of practice and knocking off Westminster last week.
We've got Calhoun head coach Clay Stephenson and Coach, talk about being the head coach there at Calhoun. That's not an easy job. We obviously see coaches that try to come in and replace sort of legends, and you've obviously come in at a school that has been a dominant football program for a long time, won some state championships. You're following a really good name as a coach. And I know that community up there is a special community. Last year, you guys came down to Atlanta and played the Great Atlanta Bash and beat Carver, and it was really cool seeing sort of the town close up and follow you guys down to Midtown High School. But sort of talk about filling those shoes up there and coaching at a place like Calhoun where winning's expected.
Yeah, very blessed to be here for sure. Coach Lamb gave me a shot 20 years ago now, and I've been here. This is my 20th year, so very blessed to be here. But regardless of who is in this seat, it's all about the players and the town, the community. It's the players expect to win each and every Friday night, and they give maximum effort, and they grow up wanting to go out there and play on Phil Reeve Stadium, and so when they get there, it's just the expectation that's kind of been entrenched in them their whole life. So very, very proud of where we are, and very proud of our assistant coaches and administration all the way through the board. It's a great place to be for sure. Coach Foster at Cartersville is kind of in the same boat of, we got handed the keys to a nice car, and we're just trying to keep it between the lines. So, but very pleased with where our team is now, where our coaching staff and administration is.
And Coach, you'll be coming off a bye, but in this Cartersville matchup, it's no secret you're going to have to be focused for all 4 quarters. It doesn't matter if you think you are in control. They have this ability to just hit that big play, get back in game. So just based off the most recent seasons, how important is it for your team to stay focused every single play, no matter what the circumstances, to avoid that potential comeback or that game-changing play?
Yeah, you just have to look at, like you said, the last few years. 3 years ago, it was a 7-point game. 2 years ago, it was triple overtime. Ended up being a 2-point game with a 2-point conversion. And last year, it was 21-17 with the score with 18 seconds to go. So it's an easy message to send to the players this week of the kickoff and then play for 4 quarters to that final whistle. So that's kind of been the message that no matter where the score is, we got to make sure we keep playing until the final whistle.
And then, Coach, real quick, looking at Cartersville start, they're 3-0. They've had some pretty big blowouts. I feel like field position, though, in this particular matchup might be more valuable than they've seen in the last recent games. Execution in the red zone. How big do you think that area is going to be tonight, just in the red zone, overall execution?
Yeah, to start off that question, field position will be huge. That time comes down to a lot of times special teams and turnovers. So make sure you got to stir those up, and playing a great team like Cartersville. Anytime that you can get down into the red zone, obviously you got to get some points. Feel really good with our kicking game. Carlos Lopez is a senior for us, and he's doing a great job. So feel really good getting down there, but you got to come away with points. And when you get down there, and make sure that you're just solid on the field position side of it to win big games like this.
We're talking to Calhoun coach Clay Stephenson. This is the Georgia High School Sports Daily, brought to you by IBEW Local 613 on the Peachtree Sports Network. Coach, talk about the fact, how long has it been? Y'all are in different classifications. So Cartersville right now is a 4A school. You guys are a 3A school. Has it been a while since y'all have been in different classifications?
Not really. The last 4 years we were in the same classification. Before that, it'd been a while since we were in the same classification. But being able to we didn't have to play this year. The last 4 years, obviously, it's a huge region game. But we talked about it, and we thought it was what's best for our program and his program, and schools and communities to keep the rivalry going. And just look at the last few years of how close the games have been. So it's a great test for us. Early in the year, it's a great test to kind of see where you are moving forward when getting to region play. So it's going to be an exciting game for sure. Looking forward to getting out there and competing with those guys.
Coach, of course, what happened in Appalachia a couple of days ago was horrible. I was just wondering, with that, with really it being the first of that type of school shooting in the state of Georgia, did y'all what happened at Calhoun? How did y'all, the administration deal with that, with the teachers and the coaches and everything, and of course the students at the school?
Tragedy, obviously, and it did hit closer to home because it's a school that we've been in a couple of times and had different people that knew people that were there, and so we addressed it that next morning. We had early morning practice and just got the guys up and made sure we reminded them that nothing's taken for granted, and the broader thing is we all have a purpose in a football game, and that was the goal for us, the message for us to be making sure that we're living for the right reasons and doing the right things, because you never know what's going to happen, and just making sure that we understood that it was you're living for a better purpose than a football game. So that was our message to them. But again, thoughts and prayers go out to those guys and those families. It's an awful tragedy.
Before I let you go, real quickly though, Coach, how do you as a coach, because you've got to pick up these things. I mean, obviously this situation, there was a situation a couple of years ago with this kid. But how do you, as a coach, are you looking for those type things these days? Just different things that, you might go mention to the administration that you see?
Yeah, it's never an easy thing, being a teacher and educator. Work every day, and you don't exactly know what to expect. Obviously, you never expect something like that, but I feel like our administration does a great job of preparing all of the staff and the students for any situation that comes about. But it's again, just thoughts and prayers go out with those guys and that school and that community.
Well, Coach, we appreciate it. We look forward to being in Cal. We've already got our truck pulling in, so we look forward to seeing you tonight. Good luck, Coach.
Hey, thanks, guys.
All right, next we've got our statewide selections, so stay with us.
What happens after you graduate? Will you go to the next level? People have your back in the heat of the battle. Will you still train like a champion in pursuit of greatness? You will when you become an IBEW electrician. Join our team. Visit IBEW613.org. The Mechanical Trades Institute is an opportunity towards personal financial freedom with hands-on and rewarding work. Our school is completely free and gives apprentices the knowledge and skills required to gain access to a lifelong career path. Apprentices learn
proper training.
GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com has 14 different highly skilled trades with tuition-free training in our certified apprenticeship programs to train you the right way. Find your career at GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com.
A journeyman with local 85, when you turn out, you can be hitting six figures.
Hey, I have your back, you have my back. We're going to do this together. We're one for all for one.
College just wasn't for me. Let's look into actual career jobs that wouldn't take college where I wouldn't lose money and all that. Instead of losing a lot more money at the end, why not make money and make more money?
Set, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're back.
Welcome back to the Georgia High School Sports Daily, brought to you by IBEW Local 613. Also want to thank Sheet Metal and Georgia Construction Careers, as they're also two of our sponsors that are helping us put this show on every day. So we're going to start it, this being our first week, we'll start a new segment on Friday called Statewide Selections. Going to bring in Najee Wilkins, who is typically in studio, but on Fridays he works from home because of the situation of all the games and everything on Friday night that he helps write and get scores for. So Najee, hope you are doing well, and we will get through these by each. So we're going to start off with 6A, and 6A we've got Hughes at Douglas County. Just really quickly, Douglas County, of course, beat up Cedar Grove in the Corky Kell Dave Hunter Classic. Really probably the most talented team in the state right now. Not necessarily the best, but certainly right there as far as talent. And then Hughes, of course, over the last few years has had some very good teams. Najee, we'll start with you on the Hughes on this game.
Yeah, I'm going to roll with Hughes. I think it should be a good one between these two. One of the better games in the state. They played last year. So Douglas County has won two of the last three matchups.
You're going with Hughes.
I'm going with Hughes.
Okay, you're going with Hughes. All right.
Najee, what I like about this, remember when we did the 2022 game? That was when Hughes won the state championship. Douglas County was really the only team that tested them. Hughes ended up running away with it. Douglas County said, we want that get-back game. Last year, Douglas County, they beat Hughes. Do you think that this is the get-back game for Hughes?
I think it is. Like I said, Douglas County won two of the last three. I think they got something to prove in this one. Obviously, if you guys don't know, Coach Boone comes from that coaching tree up under Coach Johnny White. So they know each other very well. They're very familiar with each other. And like you said, Craig, they play in the same region. So it's going to come down to the trenches. You got two commits, Therese Dice, Auburn commit, and you got Dontrell Glover. I think Langston Hughes has one of the best offensive lines in the state. And I think you're going to see them pound the ball a lot tonight.
I'm going with Douglas County in this one. I think I'm impressed with their offensive line. They got Coach Vince Vance there leading that offensive line, and I just don't think they've shown all their cards, but I think it'll be a heck of a matchup for sure, and we'll see if this trend continues where 5A is knocking off the top brass of 6A.
All right, I'm gonna be the tiebreaker here. All right, I'm going with Douglas County. Sorry, Najee. It should be a heck of a football game. All right, let's go down to 5A. Warner Robins at Houston County. This, of course, is a rivalry of two schools that are very close to each other. Houston County's gotten off to a really good start. Craig, we'll start with you. Who's your pick on Warner Robins at Houston County?
So this is technically a 5A versus 4A. I think Houston County has just been too red hot. Question has been with their defense, their run game. I think they've answered those. And it's a really big game for Antoine Hill in terms of our watch list, in terms of beating another top program. But their win over Perry last week convinced me that this Houston County team's built in every phase of the game. All
right, Najee, what you think?
Yeah, I'm rolling with Houston County as well. The biggest question in this game, can Houston County offensive line with Peyton Joseph, who's committed to Florida State, can they block Isaiah Gibson, who's also on our Mr. Georgia watch list? We're going to find out tonight. Isaiah Gibson had 2 sacks in the win last week against Northside Warner Robins, but I'm still going to roll with Houston County. Antoine Hill's going to be too much.
I'm going with Houston County, too. Let's go down to 4A. All right, we've got North Cobb at Cass. We'll have North Cobb, by the way, on our drive for the GHSA title in a couple of weeks. They'll play at Walton, which should be a heck of a football game. North Cobb, a little bit of a surprise this year. Very strong. Came off really coming off some big wins. Very good team. It's just a lot of talent in the top classification. But I'll say this: I'm very impressed with what Cass has done. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to get them on Corky this year because their game with Callaway, because of the weather, was postponed. They ended up playing. They ended up beating Callaway pretty well. But I'll tell you, Steve Gates, the coach up at Cass, has done a great job. I mean, I'm interested, Najee. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. The reason why Norcross having such a good start is because of Nick Grimstead. He's been, I feel like, in that Georgia High School Football Daily top performers for the past couple of weeks. But I'm going with Cass. I think Brody McWhorter is going to be able to find his target. Isaiah Culp, who's a 2027, and Chase Tatum. I think they're going to have an explosive offense. Expect for this one to be a shootout.
Craig?
I'm going with Cass too. I think they might. North Cobb's actually favored in this one. There is some history with these programs. Coach Gates used to be at North Cobb on the staff of Coach Queen. So it will be really tough. But, man, if Cass is able to win this game, Brody McWhorter, his stock is really going to rise. And obviously all the Cartersville fans watching our game tonight are going to be interested in this result. So we'll have it updated at the bottom of the screen.
And I'm going to actually go with North Cobb. Okay, I like Cass. I think Cass has a chance to win a state championship in their classification. I just think at the end of the day, North Cobb's going to be a little bit bigger and stronger up front. All right, let's go down to our 3A game, which is Stevens County at Jefferson. Craig?
I'm going to go with Jefferson, and I know they had that tough loss to Marist to open the season, but their quarterback, that was Gavin Markey, he actually got hurt in that game. I went back and looked at it. He was only 1 of 3. Since then, the offense has been much better. Stevens County is a really good team. This is a number 2 versus number 2 in their respective classifications, but I think Gavin, healthy at quarterback, that's the big difference, and I think Jefferson wins this.
I'm looking at the defensive side of the ball for me. I'm going with Jefferson as well. Keelan Butler, who's committed to Georgia State, and then obviously Max Brown, the high-end linebacker. That's the brother of Sammy Brown, 2027 class. I think they will be able to slow down Javin Gordon, who's one of the better running backs in 2025. So I'm going with Jefferson.
And I agree with you both. I'm going to go with Jefferson, too. Jefferson's a special place. If you ever get a chance to go watch, just want to pick a high school football game to go watch, go up to a Jefferson home game. That's one of those areas that sort of shuts down for the game on Friday night. All right, we're going to go down to 2A. Greene County at Morgan County. Najee, what do you think?
Two 3-0 teams. This should be a good one. Morgan County has a really good team. So does Greene County. But I'm going to go with Greene County coming out on top. I believe in their quarterback, Landon Garrison. I think he's going to have a big game.
Yep, Greene County was the only team that beat Morgan County in the regular season last year. This is their 52nd time meeting, and only the second time both have been ranked. I've been super high on Morgan County, though. I think I was the only one that had them in the top 10 to start the season in Class 2A. I'm going with Clint Jenkins and Morgan County. I think they're going to win this and avenge last year's loss.
All right, don't make me look bad, Craig, because I'm gonna go with you on Morgan. All right, we're going to go down to the 2 1A classifications. We got 1A Division 1. This is an interesting one. Thomas County Central at Thomasville. And real quickly on this, typically one team's very good and the other team's not very good. Where are we at, Craig, this year on these two teams?
Last year was not an even match at all. Thomas County Central dominated it. It was, I think, 45-7. This year, though, I think on paper, Thomasville has been so much better. They've been dominant. Their new coach is settling in. I think it'll be much closer the second time around, but obviously you got to go with Thomas County Central, the defending 6A state champs in this, but I think it's going to be an interesting game to watch, and people should not count Thomasville out this season.
Yeah, and that's, Najee, what do you think about this one?
Same thing. Thomas County Central, a player to watch, Christian Deuce Lawrence. He has 392 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns. I think the running game is going to be potent in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Thomas County Central. All right, let's go to the other 1A, and that is McIntosh County Academy at Emmanuel County Institute.
I'll talk about this one a little bit. So it's going to be a Region 3 opener for both teams, and with ECI, they're coming off 2 very close wins. Wilcox County in overtime, and then they had the big win over Swainsboro in their next game. They've had a bye. They've entered the rankings. In terms of McIntosh County Academy, They shut out Islands the first game of the season and then get shut out the second game. So it's a team with ECI that's played 2 very close games, and then McIntosh County Academy hasn't really played a close game yet. So it's a big region opener. I just think ECI is a team in this Class A Division II that can make some noise, but this is a big test. They want to come off the bye strong.
All right, real quick, Najee, what do you think?
Emmanuel County Institute, I'm with Craig. I think that big win against Swainsboro last week got that momentum for him.
All right, real quickly to the private A, which is Class A, 3A private, Greater Atlanta Christian, Westminster. Craig, quickly.
Yeah, Westminster, they obviously you're coming off that Calhoun loss, but GAC has really not had a good performance yet this season. It's a game that I feel like both programs want to win.
Najee?
For me, Westminster, GAC gave up 42 points to Decatur last week. Yep. I believe in Westminster.
I believe in Westminster, too. So we'll go with that on our statewide selections. Coming up on the Georgia High School Sports Daily, we got a surprise for you, so stick around. All right, welcome back to the final segment of our first week on the Georgia High School Sports Daily, brought to you by IBEW Local 613. And I told you we had a surprise for you. So we're going to do a hometown rivalries segment with both Najee and Craig. And Craig went to Walton High School, graduated, played football there in 2000, graduated in 2006. And we got Najee back up? All right, and Najee, you graduated 2016, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, so you are exactly 10 years apart. And, of course, Norcross will be at Walton this week, which is a really huge non-region game for both teams. I know Walton, Craig, is probably ready to play after that loss last week.
Yeah, these are teams we've both seen play on TV this year. I think the positive for Walton last week was Caden Gilstrap getting more guys involved offensively. He had passes to 6 different receivers. The blaring negative, though, was the big play. Saquon Smith, the dual threat quarterback, also at Roswell, they tore him up. They had a 94-yard touchdown in that game. They had, I think, a pick 6 at the end. This is going to be the same problem against Norcross. They're so athletic. Dylan Muhammad's a dual threat. So for Walton, the key, and I'm sure it's been preached a million times this week, is they've got to limit the big play. The defense is solid for Walton, but they're really going to have to change things up, gang tackle, and not let that hurt them.
You know, I'm a big fan. I want to hear from you, Najee, on this. You know, obviously we're very close to Walton. Walton's been a really good school for SCORE Atlanta. And Daniel Bruner is one of my favorite head coaches. I just think Daniel does a super job. By the way, Daniel also coaches his son, who I think's on the 6th grade team. He's not the head coach of the 6th grade, but you'll see Daniel out there. I think he coaches actually the defensive backs for that. But I've always been very impressed. You know, Walton's had some really good coaches over the years. But Daniel's come in, probably should have won a state championship last year. But Najee, as one of the better younger coaches in the state, I think you'd agree that Daniel is right up at the top.
Oh, 100%. I mean, what he's able to do with the talent, and when you break down their roster, IJ, you look and see they don't have like a 5-star prospect. Like they had on the O-line last year with Daniel Calhoun, but I'm talking about key skill position players, right? A lot of this he's doing with unrated players or even 3-star players, and he's bringing them, home. And that was one of their better teams, and they fought all the way to the end, went 14-1, and had an incredible run. So what he's doing again this year, I mean, they have a pretty good record right now. I mean, they did lose to Roswell, but overall, good team. Christian Ward, deep threat, can take the top off the defense. You look at, obviously, Drew Cascone. I know he'll be out in this game, but he's really good as well. And then they got a 3-star running back in Lucas Ferriton. But I do agree with Craig when he says the big play, and that is something to watch in this game. Deshaun Clark is really good. In our game that we had a few weeks ago, AJ, he had a touchdown against Mill Creek. He could take the top off the defense as well. 16 catches, 209 yards, and 2 touchdowns so far this year. That's going to be something to watch. And the guy that has not got started really yet, Jamari Harrell. That's your 50-50 ball winner. He balled out in the Corky Kell Dave Hunter Classic, won Offensive Player of the Game last year when they played Marietta.
Craig?
No, it's a great point. I'm also interested in this, and we've seen Walton, how they had success in some of these big upsets. They are aggressive offensively. They aren't afraid to go for it on 4th down. They're really good at, if they get behind in the chains, they can set themselves up for like a 4th and 3 that they're willing to go for. I don't know how aggressive they're going to want to be, though, against Norcross. Last week, they were going back and forth. They had an interception at the end of the game that ended up costing them. So how aggressive is the play calling going to be for both teams, I think, is an interesting point, especially when you look at Norcross against Mill Creek. I think a lot of people that watched that game felt that Norcross could have potentially been more aggressive and try to create those 50-50 balls.
All right, so let's turn to Norcross. We're talking about the Norcross at Walton game tonight, which is the big one, of course. Greg, you went to Walton. Najee, you went to Norcross. I've known the coach at Norcross since I was little. And Keith and I, he went to St. Pius and played for his father, which was right across the highway from where I went at Lakeside. We never played them because they were a smaller classification. But always been very impressed with what Keith Maloof has done for Norcross. But I will say this. He always has a lot of talent. And, of course, he won those 2 huge back-to-back state championships with Alvin Kamara. Next year, what was the kid that ended up going to Tech? I can't remember. What was it, Norcross running back? Yeah, Miles Autry. He's done a good job. I watched our game that we had against Mill Creek. It seems like sometimes Norcross just can't get over the hump in a game. You looked at them against Mill Creek. I think Mill Creek is really good, but Norcross just couldn't come up with the big play to sort of win that game.
Yeah, and they definitely struggled protecting Dylan in the pocket in that game too. So we'll see how aggressive the Walton pass rush is going to be. One thing I will also say about Walton, though, Brookwood was able to run the ball pretty much all over them with Braden Tyson. So can Norcross establish the run to alleviate some of that pressure that Walton be bringing to Dylan? But I do think it's going to go through his arm. I have confidence in Norcross's coaching staff to learn from these previous matchups, and I think In terms of Walton, it's a similar opponent with Roswell in terms of big playmakers, a dual threat quarterback. The projection is Walton by 10 points. I'm obviously going to pick Walton, but I think it's going to be very close.
One final point I want to add, I want to talk a little bit about the defense. You talk about the pressure, if they can get it on Muhammad. Can Norcross get the pressure on Caden Gilstrap and make him feel uncomfortable? They do have a 4-star prospect in Carter Lucky in 2026 class, so he doesn't. I think he has maybe 1 or 2 sacks this season. He's going to have a big game in this one if they want to have a chance and create some turnovers to create shorter fields for that Norcross offense.
Real quick, I think Norcross goes over and beats Walton.
All
Listen, real quickly, want to thank Najee, want to thank Craig, want to thank Ashley, Carrie, who's produced, Fritz, who's on the board for us and has done a great job. We're going to be back on Monday. Please don't forget. And we'd also like to end with a moment of silence for the 4 victims of the Appalachian murders earlier this week.
Beginning the morning you opened your eyes, we spent every waking moment preparing you for the day you'd leave our nest. Whether it's driving to practice or helping with homework, it's all prepared you for, what am I going to be when I grow up? Will you be ready?
After much thought, I made my decision to take my talents to the IBEW Local 613.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers is not simply a job, it's a career. Visit IBEW613.org to begin a new future today.
Hey, is the power off on this?
I don't know. Just take it off. Safety violation. Unsafe work conditions.
In the construction trades unions, safety is our highest priority, and we train you to recognize and speak out on unsafe working conditions so that everyone arrives and goes home safely. Learn about careers in construction at GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com.
Basic combat training is a 10-week experience that will challenge you both physically and mentally. Each phase of your training will introduce you to new soldier skills, building and advancing them along the way. You and your fellow soldiers will work as a team to accomplish each mission